everybody, and welcome to the Autism Now What podcast. I am so excited to introduce Garreth Murray. He has been involved in the world of medicine since he was 9 years old. He has manufactured a very, very special multivitamin called Naleo. And we're going to hear more about this multivitamin and more about Gareth. So just to give you a little bit of a background, when he was 9 years old, he was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he learned from his experience with diabetes, he learned that he has to be solutions orientated. And he told me that he got very, very involved in diabetes and in helping youth with diabetes. And he helped to develop educational materials and programs and secured resources for diabetes camps and diabetes youth leader training camps for young children with diabetes to affect change in their communities. This is very, very special, Gareth, coming from that background where you were medically ill yourself and you've always been proactive. You're somebody who you take action, because even after you were diagnosed with diabetes, you've tried to help other people. So after starting this youth organization for diabetes when he was only 16, it paved the way for Gareth to work in pharmaceuticals at large and at multinational companies, where he accumulated a lot of experience over a period of 13 years. That's a very long time in the pharmaceutical industry. Gareth is currently the product manager at Delfrin Pharmaceuticals, where his personal life directed him towards solutions in autism after his twins, Lennon and Leo, were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, and he is inspired to empower change for those with autism by working with a like-minded pharmaceutical company like Delfrin. I mean, Gareth, like I said earlier, you take action. If something happens in your life, you turn that into meaning and you turn that into helping others. It's just amazing. With Delfrin, this is now this pharmaceutical company who's helped to formulate Nelio, this very amazing multivitamin we're going to learn more about today. So Delfrin has manufactured this product with Gareth, named after the daily experience of his twins with autism, Lennon and Leo, and their daily sensory experiences. I think so many parents raising children on the spectrum can relate to the fact that their children have sensory issues. And Lennon and Leo have challenges and needs where they've needed to focus and also needed to learn developmental skills that they've been missing. And that's when you started, Gareth, to delve into research on how you could help them. And that's what's behind this book, Nelio. So welcome to you. And I'm going to just jump straight into my questions, which is going to be, because I want to hear it from you and everybody listening wants to hear it from you. What prompted you to create Nelio? I know it was the twins, but give us a little bit more background.
Well, Ilana, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to liaise with you in any regard. You've, throughout the years, we've spoken quite a bit, and you've always been instrumental in just understanding some of the aspects of autism. So I think from the start, just when the boys were diagnosed, I think the biggest thing is it is so much information. The hardest journey for me was actually just discovering more about autism and more about the things that we don't know or that we assume, because we tend to think that it's just a brain, condition, if you're coming from a parent's point of view. So to create Naleo in 2020, Lennon and Leo were diagnosed with autism. I was quite relieved to find out that, now we know what this is that the boys have. But the next challenge that I had to find out was essentially going, what actually is autism? What is this all about? What do I need to know? What's important? And how do I understand some of the things that I'm busy looking at on a daily basis when I'm looking at these boys? I mean, they're two vastly different boys. They both present very differently when it comes to their symptoms and behavior. And after going through a lot of the research, I found, besides, coming with some of the solutions that come with Naleo Spectrum, essentially, there were so many different aspects with regards to their gut and their behavior and little things that we could actually do at home where there's some promising research coming out that is often overlooked. And being in the market that we are in, it's a very expensive, costly, timely, commitment that you have to your children. And I think we just needed to, at Delfran, create something very specific for people with autism.
So just a couple of things just to add to what you've said. Firstly, you're absolutely correct. Autism is not just a brain condition. There definitely are underlying medical conditions that's contributing to the autism diagnosis. Interestingly also that you mentioned that the twins present differently, and I think that's important for parents and professionals listening to understand, because there's no one cookie cutter. We know that there can be common underlying medical issues that are causing the autism symptoms, but every child does present a little differently, which means their treatment has to be a little bit different and tweaked. And then I really like the fact that you said that you felt that the research is being overlooked. And I have to agree with you. The gut-brain connection now in autism is something that is undeniable. And there is so much new research now on the fact that children on the spectrum present with many different kinds of vitamin and mineral deficiencies, which brings me back to Nelio. So what is Nelio and what is it used for?
So Naleo Spectrum is essentially an all-in-one sensory-friendly supplement. Again, we designed it based on the challenges that we would see would be challenging for someone like Lennon and Leo in their daily routines. I found that I would often go out and buy a whole bunch of vitamins and minerals. It would cost a heap and a load. And, we had to try and make sure we had the best quality or the right type of a form of a vitamin. And when it came to the development of Naleo Spectrum, just combing through some of the data, the things that prompted me to create an all-in-one supplement actually started when I would look at Lennon in particular. With his particular presentation, he struggled significantly with constipation, and he would go days, he would struggle quite a bit. Then there would be all the sensory aspects of how to get the food in, if it looked a different color or it smelt a certain way, or whatever the case might be with them. But when it came down to the research, I was it was empowering to actually understand that, okay, for once, I'm now looking at quite strong evidence to show, depending on the trial you look at, you can see that 30 to 70% of patients, could be more, struggle with gastrointestinal disorders. And I'm going, okay, there's something happening now with the gut over here. So we constantly looked at going, okay, so there's actually the second brain that's busy working with these kids with autism. And then we'd go a little bit further and we'd go, hang on a second, there's significant vitamin D deficiencies in some of these kids. We'd go one step further and we go, okay, now we've also seen that a lot of these kids have folate autoantibodies. So why is there so many nutritional gut-related issues for these kiddies? And that's why it took 2.5 years of non-stop research just to make sure that we could get the most comprehensive supplements for these kiddies to complement the needs or deficiencies that they may be struggling with.
I love that it's a sensory friendly supplement. That is so important. I think when I tell parents to give their children vitamins, they stare at me like, how am I going to get my child to swallow a pill? So the fact that it's in a powder form is amazing. The next thing to say is that you spent 2.5 years researching this. I can see that you've done your homework. You mentioned combing the data. You work for a company that collaborated with you, Delphine, who really delved into the information. And I think what's most amazing is that you speak from firsthand experience. You're not just somebody on the outside who decided to put a multivitamin together. You experienced twins who presented in different ways. And, you know, you spoke about your one little boy's constipation, and constipation is really a problem with a lot of children on the spectrum. And so can I just ask you, right of there, with the constipation, what can help that? What did you find with your son help the constipation?
So we were given essentially from the doctor a paraffin, but at the same time, you know, everything became a game of just trying to really understand what might be the best for these kiddies. So I think when it came to their experience in particular, it was just really understanding what might work for them in particular. But when it comes to a supplement like Naleo Spectrum, I just found that just making sure that they have the right kind of diet or the right kind of daily use of the correct minerals and vitamins might have been of benefit, you know, especially to these people with autism. But I've got to tell you that, funnily enough, with Lennon, he seemed to have gotten better over the years with his constipation. But at the same time, there's a whole bunch of challenges that come into play when you start to introduce some of the chronic medications. That in itself will impact, you know, their appetite, what they eat. Maybe it increases weight or influences what they will or won't eat. So it's still something that I work with to try get right. It's a never ending journey.
And I'm so happy that you shared that, because I think a lot of parents listening are also trying to solve that. I know one mom that I'm very close to. I mean, her son is now 5. I was introduced to her when her son was 2, and it's 3 years of her trying to sort out his constipation. I know there's not always an easy solution. I have learned from my kids, and by no means is any of the information on this podcast intended for any kind of medical recommendation. So parents listening must make sure to always, you know, consult their doctor, because every child is completely different, and this is just for informational purposes or something you can discuss with your doctor. But with my kids, when they had constipation, I did find that eradicating food allergies helped. And also, actually, I found that there was a mitochondrial element in the constipation. If the mitochondria was sluggish, it wasn't helping them move those bowels.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now also just you mentioned vitamin D, and we know that vitamin D, and I'm looking at Nelio, yeah, vitamin D is something that really there is research now to show is really missing in kids on the spectrum, and also vitamin D, very important for speech and language. So I'm looking at the box, and here's the ingredients, okay, and there's a whole lot of vitamins and minerals that you decided on. Oh my goodness. How did you choose the ingredients of Nelio?
So the basis of Naleo Spectrum is essentially, like I said, with the 2.5 years of work, was really making sure that we approached it with as much clinical excellence as possible. And again, referring back to as much of the strong clinical data that is coming out and has been coming out for a decade or two now. And what we found, as an example with the vitamin D, I mean, it depends on what condition you look at. But we've seen in some studies, and I know just from experience, when you look even in PCOS and diabetes, there is a significant deficiency, you know, in autism when it comes to vitamin D. I mean, there was one study I was looking at that showed that up to 92% of these kids are significantly vitamin D deficient. you look at some of the other things, and there'll be a combination of prebiotics in there as well, which is your precursor for your probiotics, which seems to possibly show benefits with the gut microbiome for these kids. Particularly, I would say people with autism. But essentially, we found that often when we're looking at these clinical trials where there is a key vitamin deficiency, even the vitamin B12 is a methylated B vitamin. So it's a methylcobalamin, which is highly absorbable, easily absorbed for patients who struggle with that. But what we found is with many of these ingredients, when you look at patients with autism, when they were supplemented where there was a significant deficiency, there were key improvements in speech, in behavior, in hyperactivity. There were benefits in, sleep as well. I mean, often a lot of people with autism might be on a melatonin, but we don't necessarily always understand that things need to be synergistic and work together. Like your folate, if you are struggling to absorb it, you need a vitamin B12 to increase its absorption. When you look at things like melatonin, we know that we also need a vitamin D, which might seem a little bit strange, to help increase its absorption as well. So we can understand that everything needs to work synergistically, and we need to know that there are many pieces to a puzzle to make the full picture work.
I love your explanation. And you highlighted really important issues that parents are faced with in autism: speech issues, behavioral issues, sleep issues, picky eating, and you've done the research. Now, you're telling us you did the research, it's looking like a good idea, Nelio. How can parents and professionals know that Nelio is a good and trusted brand?
So with Delphran Pharmaceuticals, I'm absolutely all for quality and ensuring things are done the right way. And we always challenge ourselves to say that our lowest standard that is acceptable is the highest possible quality. So every ingredient in Naleo Spectrum is sourced from accredited suppliers in order to comply with top standards and GMP guidelines set according to SAHPRA, which is the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. So everything needs to be in line to fall in line with those guidelines to come out with Naleo Spectrum. So at the same time, we do know that all the ingredients in Naleo Spectrum are tested. So we do know that, when it comes to quality for the final product, everything has to have gone through a rigorous process and follow a set of preset guidelines to basically tick the box in quality.
Gareth, what does GMP stand for? You said GMP guideline.
So that's your good manufacturing practice.
Wow. The more I hear you speak, the more excited I'm getting about this product. Because, as a parent, I think parents are very afraid to harm their children. I want to give him this, but I'm so afraid I'm going to harm my child. I'll often say to the parents, I realized with my children, they were already harmed, and I needed to do something to help them because the harm had already been done. But I think just understanding the product, understanding the background, all the research that you've done, that it's a good quality, that it had to go through quality standard testing, really gives parents an assurance, because I think they're so scared. I'm so scared to harm my child. So I really think you gave us a really good description there of what the product went through to be now actually available to the public. You don't just put a multivitamin on the shelf. Now, how do parents decide on the dose? If I've got an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, will I be able to give this vitamin to my child? If my child is 15 can I give the vitamin? And how do I determine the dose?
So with Naleo spectrum, we work more specifically with weight as opposed to age. And the reason for that is because of these several factors that do come with autism. You do find some of these people with autism might be overweight, or there might be things influencing, some of the normal metabolic aspects of people. So what I do say essentially as a general guideline, and it's, first off, it's always advised to liaise with your healthcare provider, but Naleo spectrum is based off the clinical trial where there is an indication of dosage, which would roughly equate to, if you are 10 to 30 kilograms, you would take half a scoop of Naleo spectrum per day, added to your food or your beverage that is being used. If you're 30 to 55 kilograms, it would be 1 scoop. If you 55 to 80 kilograms, 2 scoops. 80 to 110 kilograms, that would be 3 scoops. And then if you are between 110 and 135 kilograms, you would be using 4 scoops per day. So it's essentially how big is the engine to ensure that we give the right amount of fuel to it.
That makes sense. That really does. I also always, and again, I'm not a doctor, just as a mom, if I speak to parents, I'll say, if you're going to start anything new, don't give that something new in the evening. Always give that something new in the morning, and give that something when you're with your child so that you can see that there isn't like any adverse reaction. And always start with just a little bit, and then you can always build, to the dose. But I think you've given a good explanation of that you've decided on how much to give based on the weight of the individual taking the supplement. Now, just an interesting question, but certain things are an essential. So why would Nelio be an essential for any household with a child who's raising a child with autism?
It's a good question. I think, as much as we spend this time speaking about people with autism, the caregivers are essentially, they're so important. Without a caregiver, without a parent, where are we going to take these people with autism? So I know I want to give the best, and I want to see that we are making a difference. So I want to put my mind at ease. I want to know that I'm doing the best, I'm getting the best, and I've done, or I can be dependent on someone who has done the work to assist me in my journey with autism. If I am now aware that there are possibly nutritional deficiencies or gut imbalances or genes at play that may impact on the gut, then I also know that there is something now that may contribute to that deficiency or rectify some of those deficiencies. And I understand that I am giving the best for my child, or I am giving the best for people with autism. And I think as well, if there is a deficiency, if we are able to rectify it in an easy daily way without altering the routine of these people living with autism, then I know that I'm putting my mind at ease, and I know that I am contributing to the best possible development that I can for this person with autism, because this is absolutely a team approach. And while we know that we have to cater to some people, we know that now there is another, excuse the cliche, there's another piece to the puzzle that we can add. There's not something missing. I've ticked that box, and I know that this is something that I don't need to worry about or have sleepless nights about, going, I wonder if and should I do this, because it's available and we're able to assist them. And if you're using it daily, then you've also got the confidence to sit down and, over time, watch, are there improvements? Are we making a difference? And at the end of the day, as long as we're trying, I think the biggest thing, at least for myself, is going, if I didn't try and I wanted to do it, that would be the biggest thing that would impact me, is could I have made a difference? And here's something that, hey, maybe we can make a difference. So if there's an opportunity, take it.
a couple of comments. Again, I'm just a mom, not a doctor, but what I experienced with my two boys was that if you give something, you will see it working within a couple of days, probably like a week or so, you'll know that's working. If you're not sure it's working, what I also used to do is I would remove that something, and then you'll definitely see, oh my goodness gracious me, I need to put that thing back, because you don't actually realize how much it actually is helping until you remove the product, and then you see, oh my gosh, no, I need to put that thing back. Now, I just want to make a couple of comments just on the ingredients, just from my experience over 19 years. My oldest is 21. David's got, I always say he's profoundly autistic, but even though he's profoundly autistic, you know, we've made a good quality of life for him, and supplementing a multivitamin over the years has helped immensely with so many things. So just to share a little bit of what I've learned, and then you're welcome to comment, Gareth, but I see you've got vitamin B6. So I know for my son, David, vitamin B6 actually helped him to sleep, was very important. You know, my son, David, and again, please always consult your doctor, but my son, David, at one stage was having seizures, and he is epileptic, and supplementing him with vitamin B6 actually reduced his seizures. So don't ever, you know, disregard the importance of a vitamin or a mineral. Then I can see the vitamin D we spoke about. Your vitamin C, very, very important for detox, because we know that kids on the spectrum struggle to detox. You've got your zinc. Zinc plays many roles. I know you've done the research, but if they're picky eaters, I know that zinc could be something that they could be lacking. Vitamin A, very, very important. Maybe you can comment on that vitamin A. The B12, depending on what's happening with the child's methylation. All the B vitamins, and I see you've got B2, B3, B5, B1. B1, very important for appetite. All the B vitamins, very, very important for sustained attention. You've got your vitamin E, your vitamin C for detox, critical, absolutely critical in a child on the spectrum to detox. Your coenzyme Q10 also can help, I think, mitochondrial support. Turmeric root extract, you've got to correct me, Gareth, is it anti-inflammatory? Yes?
Anti-inflammatory, but it also helps increase the absorption of all the other vitamins.
Amazing. So Jan, do you want to just comment on what I said on the product? Like any comments on those ingredients?
So I'm probably the worst person, honestly, to chat to about Naleo spectrum, because I could take what is intended to be 30-second chat and turn it into a 2-hour chat. So I'll try not to go too much into it, but essentially it's 32 vitamins and minerals. If we were to classify all of them very specifically in terms of function, in a very basic way, it's an we've got antioxidants, we've got anti-inflammatories, we've got prebiotics in there. And I think something that is also very much overlooked, and I don't know what you would say from your experience as well, Ilana, is I found, particularly with the experience of Lennon and Leo, is how often they would get sick. I would go to work and my boys would be sick for 2-3 weeks straight, whereas my colleague's child would have gotten sick 2 weeks ago and gotten a bit better in a few days. But ultimately, just with regards to the vitamins and the clinical trials, I'll highlight in one paragraph. When it comes to the clinical trial with the outcome for Naleo spectrum, we saw an increase in a whole subset of symptoms that these people with autism experience. The ones that were of particularly massive significance that we saw was there was a benefit or an improvement when it came to their hyperactivity, their tantruming, their sleep. But I would also like to just highlight that in that study, there was a significant report back that the overall symptoms and the average in the benefit was also significant. And all of the symptoms included would be things like your social reciprocity, the ability to engage, listen, communicate, sleep, hyperactivity, GI function. So there was a whole range of symptoms where we saw that there was potential benefit for people with ASD. So I think the highlight of it all is that the gut vitamin deficiencies are so overlooked, and it's so easy to walk away from someone and go, I think that person has autism, as opposed to, we see them at face value we're not X-ray machines, so we can't necessarily look at them and go, okay, but I also see there is potentially a problem in what we could classify as your second brain, is your gut. So
I really like the way you refer to your second brain. I know there's the first brain, the second brain, and now even the third brain. So we won't go into that now, but I think it's just, there's been a lot of research now on how the gut-brain connection in autism. And I think most importantly, is just that the children, I do see a lot of suffering. I really do, being deficient in certain vitamins and minerals can cause a lot of problems, and it really is something that parents need to investigate and speak to their doctor about and look into, because after all my years of research, and I've been on this autism block for 19 years, I always say that I've stalked autism like a hunter stalks their prey for the last 19 years, as my oldest is 21. And my oldest, David, didn't feel well for many, many years. There are many days in David's life that he hasn't felt well. I need people to understand that. I really acknowledge and recognize people who are higher functioning on the spectrum and can speak and function and hold down a job. I had I now have an adult. I now am a caregiver to an adult with autism. And, even as a child and even in his teenage years, there were a lot of days he didn't feel well. And we always had to try and dig deeper and find out what was causing it and get to the bottom of, was it an infection in the gut? Could it have been a vitamin or mineral deficiency? So don't disregard these things. And I, as his mother, have always wanted him to have a good quality of life, and I've wanted him to feel okay, because if you don't feel okay and you're not sleeping, you can't really learn. And we want our kids to have functional skills, to be able to have a level of functionality and independence. And that's really where also all my research came in on the gut-brain connection and just what's causing all these symptoms, because with my son David, his autism is certainly not an identity. It's a medical illness. And there's definitely been over the years times where metabolically he hasn't been making sufficient vitamins and minerals, and supplementing that has alleviated a lot of days where he wasn't feeling well. And that is my experience as a parent, and I'm sharing that experience. I know that many people have very different experiences on the spectrum, and, we acknowledge that. One experience doesn't cancel another experience. That's my experience as a mother. I want my child to function. I want him to look okay. There were a lot of days where David would be pale in complexion or not look okay. So it really, for him, has not just been, it's just a brain condition and that's what it is, and I'm sharing that experience with everybody today. Now, Gareth, where can parents and professionals buy Naleo?
So you can get Nelio Spectrum on takealot.com. So I've really worked quite hard, and we have at Delfran to ensure that we make availability a number one thing. So takealot.com. If you go onto the Delfran website, there will be an online store that is going up in order to order Naleo Spectrum. Then you can get it at all your major retailers like Discount. So I'm not quite too sure when this will be aired. However, do skim in the next week or two. It should be available there. And then I always just say, because there is no South African product like this, like Naleo Spectrum, you might find that if you do have a smaller pharmacy nearby to you, the wholesalers will have stock. So you are able to at least go to them and say, can I please get Naleo Spectrum? They should be able to order it in for you.
Amazing, amazing. Okay. Now, Gareth, a message to parents. What is your message to parents raising children on the spectrum or with a learning challenge?
So it's, it's so important that we do speak to the parents as well. My message to the parents of autism is that you need to be the champion for your child with autism. You need to be a champion for people with autism, and you need to be a champion for their needs in their life. So, a lot of people might look at me and say, you've got twins with autism. How did you do this? How did you find the time to do this? And I think they just gave me the energy to do it whenever I looked at them or woke up in the morning. And you may not have chosen this diagnosis, but you can choose what you want to do with it. And I would, encourage you to choose to be that change that you want to make in their life. So go that little extra mile, because we all know, anyone who's watching this, if you've got your child with autism, that one milestone they reach means so much more than just a normal milestone for anyone else. Something else that, inspires me with the story of Len and Leo, inspired myself as a parent. It's inspired our team at Delfran Pharmaceuticals, is just to empower potential in the autism community. So I believe we need to open doors for people with autism, give them an opportunity, and that starts with, and this is so important, it's something I've learned relatively recently, is that don't assume anything with these people with autism. I mean, Lennon, you would think that they are not listening or they don't respond, so why would they be listening? They are listening intently and amazing. If you aren't speaking, if we are still working on that and getting to reach that milestone, they've got so much time to listen. I mean, with Lennon, he absolutely shocked me. You would think he doesn't listen, but I sat down with the ABCs with him approximately 3 weeks ago. He was on Naleo by that time, and I just sat him down and I said, Lennon, spell your name for me. And he looked down at his book and he went to every single letter and spelled out his name. And I said, spell dad. And he spelled dad. He's not talking, but he's listening. He's busy picking things up and they are busy listening so intently. So don't assume anything. And ultimately, the highlight of it all is I would just, urge you to observe and listen to them. So that's how you're going to listen to them. And only when you observe their challenges, only when you kind of listen to their needs and what they're doing, observing their behavior, then you have an idea of which door you're going to open and where to go from here. And the last thing I'll say, and I've always said it, and it's been a big highlight of the entire journey of Naleo Spectrum and Lennon and Leo, my little inspirations, is that Lennon, Leo, and people with autism have taught me that love needs no words.
Gareth, just listening to you has been very inspirational, and you have been instrumental in changing the course of autism for many children to come because of the production of this supplement, Nelio. I really have confidence that a lot of children are going to improve on their skills and feel better and improve their health because of what you have formulated. And you spent 2.5 years just researching this. So I'm quite blown away by you and by what you've achieved. I'm so impressed. And that's why I requested this podcast with you. I really think that, and I said that when I was introducing you, you've always been the type of person to take action. You're not one to just, okay, well, I have diabetes, that's it. You always want to pass it on. You always want to help other people. And wow, just look at what you have created. So you've made this product available. It's a good quality. And as you were saying, parents can get it from Take-A-Lot. We're looking forward to it being available on the shelves of Dis-Chem. And I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your story and for being with us today. And I certainly look forward to giving it to my younger son. My younger son lost his diagnosis of autism, but I still do supplement him with a vitamin. And yeah, this is going to definitely be an essential in my household. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ilana.